the main highlights or the main talking points was how amazing Dean Henderson was between the sticks. We're talking about a goalkeeper. We should bring Shaq on.
Yeah, I think Palace in the end had the better chances, right? I mean, yeah, Hibby-Jiby's about last time, the 4-0. And Michael Olise was still there. Did you see what he did today? Again, I think 2 goals and an assist. I mean, he's been on fire for Bayern Munich, but he isn't here. Crystal Palace is not the same team, that's for sure. 2 defeats and 2 draws before that, so certainly not the end of the season for Palace like last year under Oliver Glasner. Look, I was going to be actually full praise of Manchester United, especially in the first half, right? And after everything that happened midweek, League Cup, okay, you can forget about that, although it's 7-0, winning away at Saints. It almost seems like they're a little bit like Chelsea, where you can see the end of the tunnel. However, then came the second half, and the second half just showed how far Manchester United still are from the likes of Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool. And I hate to say it, but I mean, it's not even the same neighborhood. Now, they can obviously play with them. They've shown it last year where they were, I thought, worse than now. They can grind it out against the best, but when you look over the entire season, you can see perhaps why Manchester United are where they are. And I just think after that first half, I'd be really, really unhappy if I'm United for dropping 2 points. Now, in the second half, Palace could have easily won it, but the domination in the first half, the chances created, the way they play on the front foot, which is not always the case or hasn't always been the case with Manchester United in the last couple of seasons, with confidence, I thought they were going to see this out.
Well, let's talk about some of the tactics of Erik ten Hag, because that is what everyone seems to love to talk about. Because you know what, we're all managers in our own right, right? Before a ball was even kicked, there was the news that there would be no Marcus Rashford in the starting 11. Instead, he opted for Alejandro Garnacho, which, to be honest, is still always a good pick. But that surprised some people, or probably rubbed them the wrong way, considering that Rashford has seemed to find some form again. Now, look, Erik ten Hag said, calm down. This is simply rotation. As we know, there's a lot of football that has to be played. And Garnacho also deserves a good chance and a good run as well. But what do you think of that?
Yeah.
Janusz?
I'm not. Yeah, I mean, it'd be silly of all of us if we're putting this down to Rashford not starting. I mean, having 2 or 3 decent games in the last couple of seasons. Yeah, I'm exaggerating a little, but I mean, he hasn't been great against Barnsley. I mean, Garnacho scored 2, Rashford scored 2, Eriksen scored a couple, right? And he found himself in the starting 11 where everybody else thought it was going to be Ugarte. Perhaps against Barnsley, got that look. Run out before this game. This is a team game. This is a rotation game. It's a squad game. I shouldn't even say team game. You can see rotations. I mean, Manchester City and Inter the other day. I mean, massive game. A final of 18 months ago, they rotated the top players, right? Ahead of Inter playing Milan this weekend, and Manchester City, obviously Arsenal. So I just think I'm not putting that down to Rashford. If he started, no guarantees for that. It was a good squad that, as I've said, was on a decent run where things actually tactically, maybe just to the eye, made sense for Manchester United. You saw a little bit of a pattern of play. And I thought Manchester United were very good in the first half and, had those chances. Alexis, I mean, De Ligt's got to score that, right? Garnacho had a decent save, played through by Xerxes. Those number one, Bruno and Garnacho, the 2 crossbars, although I think Garnacho may have been offside on the first try. But anyway, it wasn't called. So they've had their chances to at least go ahead and pile on pressure. But then again, good changes, tactical changes from Crystal Palace at halftime.
Now, when you mentioned the chances that Manchester United had, especially in that first half, and we talked about the brilliance that we saw from Henderson between the sticks as well, it is a familiar chat that we've had about Manchester United, especially last season, when some could say that, they showed their worst, but they had moments where they bossed possession. They had moments where they had chances, but just that finishing touch, that last bit to be that clinical, which is something that's needed at a Manchester United. What you feel is still probably not clicking, or is it just a time for all the new faces to kind of gel in this Erik ten Hag system?
The first thing that comes to mind, I mean, just think about it. If you look at that lineup, what do you see in front? I see a lot of young players. I mean, I see Garnacho, I see Ahmad, and I see Xerxes. I mean, that alone, right? I mean, Rashford, okay, he didn't start, so you can't blame him for the first half. He's been having a tough time. Højlund, another player that just came last year, took him a while to score in the Premier League at the very least. He was scoring in all competitions, injuries here and there, but still a very young player. So obviously, these are not the sort of players that everything comes natural, right? They don't even have to look, one touch and it goes away, or it goes in, I should say. So that's probably something that's important. This team is obviously being rebuilt with Bruno Fernandes, the Papa Smurf, I suppose, of the bunch, if you have to look at it, because behind them it's still Mainu. So it is a young team. I think it's important that we say that. So these are not tried and trusted attacking players.
Well, you say the Papa Smurf there, referring to Bruno Fernandes. I know during the game, a lot of United fans didn't think he was at his best. He looked a little tired, some thought, which is fine. It's understandable. But then the change came to bring Joshua Zirkzee off. And a lot of people thought that was not the right move from Erik ten Hag. United looked a little flat and stuff afterwards. What do you make of that change? You think it should have been Bruno?
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that, by the way, because I didn't read, like you do, what the Manchester United fans say is just watching.
When I say the Manchester United fans, I mean me. I was disgruntled when I saw Zirkzee coming.
But that's okay. At least we're on the same page, because I had the same feeling. I mean, if you look at Zirkzee, I thought he played well. He wasn't amongst maybe the big changes, but I'll tell you what, for a young player, played like a proper number 9, stretching the team, right? Very good in combination play. You see his first touch play with Bruno, he had a 1-2 with a couple of players where he brought others in. I think the through ball, I think it may have been to Garnacho very early on. That was Zirkzee as well. Then that combination, as I've mentioned, with Bruno Fernandes, which Bruno should have done much better. I think he was showing in the right spots. For a young player, I like his discipline. And what I mean by that, he's not like sometimes Rashford can be, right? That when you put him at 9, then he drifts to the left, to the right, and everywhere. For me, I'm not saying that old-fashioned number 9, but striker at the end of the day has to be within the width of the penalty area, maybe even more narrow sometimes. And he does that very well. He feels very comfortable technically in tight spots, which we saw today, because obviously Crystal Palace, a lot of numbers there. So the way he played without having great opportunities to score, I thought he was very, very good. And I don't imagine he was tired. I'm not sure from what. Still young. It's not like he's played a ton this early in the season. So that surprised me, given the fact that Højlund's coming off of a injury as well. I thought, and that's why I'm glad, because I made a note. I thought it was a mistake. I would have kept him on.
What do you make of the other substitutions then that Erik ten Hag did have to make? He finally brought on Ugarte as well, this is the second time now that we're seeing him. Obviously, we saw him in the cup earlier on this week. What did you make of it? And we actually have a question from one of our viewers now who's asking, why did it take so long to bring him on? What do you make of it?
Yeah, no, I mean, that was the right, substitution. Ugarte or anybody else that plays in that part of the pitch and in that position, because, I mean, look at Crystal Palace and it went chance after chance after chance. I mean, and as I've said, I think legitimate. Eze had a couple, the one in 70th minute when he just went wide. I mean, absolutely free. Not sure how he doesn't put that away. Then, we have Onana with an incredible double save, didn't he? I mean, my goodness. I'm trying to think who was the first one, but I know Zar was, I think that the most incredible one. The second one was on Ismail Azar. So I think that's what the game called for. And yeah, maybe our listener, whoever's asking the question, I would agree that perhaps would have been smarter to bring him in, because Eriksen, as we know, I didn't think he played terribly. We saw that rotation, Dalot coming inside from the left back position into the midfield, which we see so many teams do that now, and Eriksen kind of drifting out wide to the left. And so maybe, making that substitution a little bit earlier would have been better, but nevertheless, it was a good substitution, one that made sense.
Well, speaking of substitutions, we have another question from a viewer who's asking, why wouldn't Erik ten Hag not give any minutes to Mason Mount, who's back on the bench?
Well, again, I mean, we're not there. I mean, Mason Mount, we maybe to a degree we were somewhat surprised they were both here in the squad. Obviously, when I say both, Højlund and Mason Mount coming off of injuries. I don't want to say too much, other than the fact that maybe he just didn't feel that this was the sort of game, especially in that last 15, 20, 25 minutes where Crystal Palace were really piling on. So I don't know how close to 100% he is. So I don't know if this is the place where you doubt Ten Hag, without knowing, of course, what's on the inside.
Yeah, and then one more quick question as well from John Stevens. Are you seeing a pattern of play starting to develop with Manchester United? And this is quite interesting too, because we keep asking what is the identity. I mean, I've had to ask Erik ten Hag as well as early as just this summer during preseason, and he said, "Look, it's obvious how I want to play. I think everybody knows what my identity has been." But are you seeing that pattern of play finally develop now that he has more of the pieces that he would want?
I did. I mentioned that. I think, Dallas overall has been pretty good for Manchester United, right? If you look at, last couple of seasons, I mean, he has his moments, not so great as well, but I think he's still young enough. He's still kind of learning. But, him coming inside, that obviously gives you, and that's something, that starts in possession of the ball. So when you turn the ball over, you're going to have that help, especially when you're playing Christian Eriksen. I think that's why he probably did it. Maybe if we got it to starts from the beginning with Mainu, then you're not asking Dalot to do that, because he's very good going forward, and you don't want to sacrifice that as well. And again, the pattern of play, I think the wide areas were were pretty good. They started high pressing, which is something, or I shouldn't say high pressing maybe, but in the first half, they played high and they carried the game, which with United, Alexis, you would know even better than I do, right? And a lot of the games are so frustrating because they sit so deep, not trusting themselves, almost looking to play on the counter. This is not the identity of Manchester United, and they do have to get back to what once works. And this one, I don't know if that's something that Erik ten Hag has asked, but the combination and ability to find Xerxes. Xerxes was absolutely wonderful. I said it earlier, I repeated myself. He went back to goal. The hold-up play was very, very good. The combination play, what I like about him is he doesn't linger on the ball, right? One or two touches, and then he tries to find himself open. You saw that one, I think Bruno Fernandes played a ball from right-hand side where he kind of slid. I think he actually scored a goal like that, maybe his first goal for United, where he just redirected it, and there was a couple players sliding there. So I really like that, and I hope that this is a pattern of play where they do try to find Xerxes early when he stretches the opponents and kind of dictates where the ball goes. It allows everybody else to push up the midfield and back four or back three, however they're going to play.
Well, overall, then, Janusz, final thoughts, I suppose. If you're Erik ten Hag, how are you taking this a well-earned point on the road, considering what happened last time they were at Selhurst Park?
Yeah, it doesn't matter really what happens last time. It really doesn't matter. I mean, we like to talk about that, but there's just different teams. They mentioned some of the Palace players. That it makes zero difference what happened last time. If I were Erik ten Hag, I'd be very disappointed. I really would be. I hope these players are as well, because as I forget what the possession was, but 70 plus easily in the first half. Number of great chances, in particular the one De Ligt. I mean, that's his bread and butter, right? That's his wheelhouse. He's got to score that, 4 or 5 yards away on the header. The 1-0, and that piles even more pressure on Crystal Palace. And I think in the second half, just again stepping back, not going after it again. Maybe not right away, but last 20, 25 minutes. I think in order to keep that momentum, which was positive, winning away at Southampton, winning in the League Cup, obviously, just assume, look at, they win, they get the 3 points here. Then they have, I think, Twente at Old Trafford. And then next weekend, it's Spurs at Old Trafford. Now there's more pressure for that. Forget the Europe for now. But I'd be really, really disappointed here, because at the end of the day, it's still early. I'm not looking at a live table, but I think they're 11th, 5-6 points behind top four, right? Again, better, but compare this team to the likes of Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester City right now, and they're nowhere near.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Well, you mentioned that thing about possession. Today was actually the most possession United have had in an away game since April 2023. So small improvements, but possession doesn't win you the games.